It's always fun when we welcome a first-time visitor to Philly Pressbox Radio, and this one should be a real blast. I'm very happy to say hello to a legend in Philly sports talk radio, Angelo Cataldi. Hey, Angelo.
Chet, it's a pleasure to be on with you. Thanks for having me.
Well, Angelo, we'll talk about your new book, Loud, in just a minute, but after 33 years at WIP, you've been retired from that gig now 8 or 9 months. How is retirement, and do you miss anything about morning talk radio?
I don't miss much of it. I certainly don't miss getting up at 2:30 in the morning to do that show. But after 33 years, it takes a little adjustment not to do it anymore. And I got to tell you, Chet, a couple of times this year, the Eagles coaches have frustrated the heck out of me. And I realize after a bad loss like the one with the Jets last week, that it sticks with me more. It was therapeutic to go on the day after an awful game like that loss to the Jets and yell and scream. By 9 o'clock, I felt better. I don't have that outlet anymore, and it's a little bit harder for me. But my day is come and gone, and I accept that fully now. And I'm glad there are other people doing it very capably over at WIP.
Hey, I saw you and talked to you down at the Collingswood Book Fest a couple of weeks back, and folks who came to see you, you told them about how the book came about and how you were able to write the whole thing in, I guess, 6 weeks. And I think you mentioned that the publisher had some different ideas about the book's title and the front cover pictures. Tell us about that.
All right. Well, I'm glad that you're holding up the pamphlet we handed out at that, because this is a debut. I have not shown this to anyone yet. Ooh. I just got it yesterday. I have the actual book. I got the book. It's out. It's not out, but they sent me my first box of them, and it's just thrilling to hold a book in your hand that you wrote. That's like an amazing thing. The process itself, it just became a question of timing for me. One thing I learned from doing WIP for so many years was you got to take advantage of the moment. And the moment for me would be the same year I retired to have the book out. So I went to a lot of publishers and said, I need to publish it this year. I need it out before the holidays. And they all said no, except one, Triumph Publishing in Chicago, which had done a great job with Todd Zalecki's book, Doc, about Bright Holiday. They came to me and we talked, and they understood the immediacy of it, and they agreed to do it.
I think you said they wanted you to look like, pensive and just sitting there.
Oh, well, here's the story. I mean, having a publisher in the middle of the country, they don't really know me.
Exactly.
They read the book and they know that I'm kind of loud and demonstrative. They didn't really grasp the need in the book to have me enunciating, yelling and screaming the way I did in the show. So they came to me and they wanted to use a picture from like one of the early shoots I had done for a magazine piece. And I said, that's not really me. Give me a week and I'll get somebody and I'll send you photos that reflect what my 33 years was like. And I got a great photographer, Allison Dunlap, in Jersey. She shot it and we got them back to him in 3 or 4 days. And they went, wow, this is definitely better than what we had in mind. So sometimes you got to take control of your own destiny, and
exactly.
The destiny was, if I wanted the right product out, I had to assert myself, and I did.
Hey, Angelo, you were on with your former colleague, Mike Missinelli, on his podcast a couple of times this year, and you guys had a great discussion recently about your on-air persona versus your real-life personality. I think you actually described yourself as highly inept socially in real life, but very, very different on the radio. So who is the real Angelo Cataldi today after 33 years on the radio?
Yeah. What happened over that time, Chet, is that my real personality, my off-the-air personality, began to blend with my on-air personality to the point where it almost became indistinguishable, except in social settings. Like on the air, bringing on a caller, I felt totally comfortable in small talk and, really engaging. Not so much in a cocktail hour situation or a wedding or something like that. That never changed. But now they're starting to separate again. And I'm finding more of the serious writer type that I was prior to that. I had worked at the Inquirer and I went to Columbia Journalism School. That personality, that part of my personality seems to be reemerging, which is another way of saying I'm becoming more boring, but maybe a little more calm about certain situations than I was on the radio. It was important on the radio to really punch home your point, to amplify, to make it dramatic and entertaining. And that was the plan then. And now the plan now is, now that I've written the book, it's like now I have to be that writer again too. So it's separating some. But I did enjoy it, man. I had that part of my personality, that loud and demonstrative and crazy personality, was so much fun. And I had such a great time being that person.
Hey, well, as your WIP show got more popular over the years, I think you always had pretty solid ratings. You got a certain degree of power. In fact, it led to you having a rather unusual stipulation in your contract regarding legendary station manager Tom Bigby. Tell us about that.
Well, I think in the book, people are going to, I wonder when I was writing it, if people were to think I was a real prima donna, which actually maybe I was. But this gentleman here that you're seeing on the screen, Tom Bigby, was probably as instrumental as anyone in my success, because he was a very intelligent radio guy. And he was teaching radio to a guy who knew nothing about radio. I was a newspaper writer. And the first 2 years, he taught me how to go in and out of breaks, how to give time checks, or how to keep the rhythm of a show going. He was great at it. He used to tell me the greatest song ever written was a song called The Letter, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the box stops.
Yeah, and he said to me that it was the best song for a DJ because it was 2 minutes and 12 seconds. And he said, caller should be more than 2 minutes and 12 seconds. Well, initially I bought in and I did it that way until I realized that some callers were great and 3 minutes of their conversation was terrific. And some callers, a minute was too much. So that's where his influence started to wane after a couple of years. And then he started to get involved in the content on what was an important thing to talk about, what wasn't. And I mean, he didn't know anything about that. He was completely clueless about it. And that's when we began to engage in some epic fights, to the point that in 1995, when I was negotiating a new contract, I had told my agent I didn't think I could stay. I didn't think I could work with that guy. And he said, let me work on this. Maybe I can do something about that. And he put a clause in my contract which said that Tom Bigby, my boss, could not speak to me unless I wanted him to. It was my decision. And a couple of years later, he interrupted a show very early on when we were talking about Mike Tyson biting the earlobe off of Evander Holyfield. And he said he didn't want me talking about it. And I said, I'm going to talk about it. And I am no longer going to speak to you. And he didn't even know about the clause.
Oh,
that's how he found out about the clause. And let's just say after that, it was a bumpy ride. But, I cannot write that book. I cannot talk about that without acknowledging that without the lessons he taught me in the first couple of years, I was doomed, because I didn't know how to do a radio show, and he showed me how to do that.
Well, when we talked briefly down in Collingswood, I told you that I had been to 11 or 12 wing bowls over the years. I know it was Al Morganti's idea originally back in 1993, but how do you explain how that became the huge event that it did over 26 years?
Yeah, I did a whole chapter on it because it was,
sure.
We are known in parts of the country only for wing bowl, because it was arguably the greatest annual radio promotion in at least recent media history, because we got 20,000 people to go to an arena at 6 o'clock in the morning and watch big guys eating chicken wings. When you think about the premise, no one would think that was possible. We didn't. It evolved into that. And, right to the end, and I really talk in very specific terms in the book about what led us to not do it anymore. I was the last holdout. Everybody else wanted to get rid of it when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. And I wanted one more at least. Because, by the time it was in its 26th year, it was kind of another Mummers. I looked at it that way, a day when people went crazy. And a lot of other people thought it had evolved into something that was kind of cheap and tawdry and too much. And you know what else? The world changed. And it was a lot harder for the world to accept women running around scantily clad and all the other stuff that was going on. So it ended well, but I don't look back on it without pride. I do have pride that we pulled that off for 26 years and really opened ourselves up to a part of our listening audience that normally would not pay any attention to us.
Hey, I could talk with you for hours about dozens more topics, but in the interest of time, let's finish up with something called Fast Five. First of all, number one, your first year on WIP was this last as Eagles head coach. What was your view of Buddy Ryan?
Buddy Ryan, love, hate like no one else. Hated him when I covered him at the Inquirer. He hated me. He didn't speak to me the second half of the first season I was there with him. But over time, I learned the genius of him, which was, regardless of what you want to say, never won a playoff game here. Buddy Ryan got more people to pay attention to the Eagles. They have a bigger fan base today because Buddy Ryan got them excited. Mm-hmm. A lot of it was based on total BS, all right? But he delivered it with such a style that it connected with Philadelphia. He connected as a coach or manager. He connected with the city as well as anyone I've ever seen. So by the end, I had patched it up with him. And I think we both saw what we both were doing to connect with the fan base. And we had our own ways of doing it. But man, he was good at that. And I don't take that away from him, even though he did not have the success he thought he would have. And a lot of people thought he would have.
Number two, you've said that Wilt Chamberlain is your favorite player of all time. How come?
When I was a kid, I was a contrarian. I grew up in Providence, Rhode Island. So I rooted against the Boston teams. And the rival was the Philadelphia 76ers for the Celtics. And he played a game in Providence. He came there. They used to play occasionally real season games against the Celtics. And I just watched him. I went right down near the front, near courtside, and watched him play. And I was just spellbound. He was so big and so strong and so dominant that I loved the guy. And I got to meet him years later when he came on a book tour of his own. And he didn't disappoint me. He was larger than life, literally.
Your former colleague Keith Jones is now the president of hockey operations for the Flyers. Can Jonesy and Danny Briere turn things around?
If anyone can, Jonesy can, because the Flyers finally realized they needed somebody running their organization who understood the fans, who made a connection with the fans. I have worked with a lot of people in my life. Keith Jones is the easiest guy I've ever had to work with, the guy I have the highest respect for, because he works his job, he knows what he's doing, and nobody has better people skills than Keith Jones. Keith knows enough not to jump in the deep end of personnel evaluation and stuff like that. Briere seems to know what he's doing there. If Jonesy is given enough time and finds the right people around him, Keith Jones will bring the Flyers back. I know I'm already rooting for him a lot harder than I ever have before because I love that guy.
Yeah. Number four, how distraught are you, Angelo, that the San Francisco Giants fired Gabe Kapler?
I was in San Francisco. This is such a bizarre story. I was going on a wine country tour, and I drove past Safeco Stadium. It took me there from the airport up to Napa Valley. And as I was going by, I said to my wife, Gail, I said, that's where that jerk Gabe Kapler works. Little did I know, while that was going on, while I was passing him, he was getting fired. I couldn't stand the guy for one simple reason. He wasn't honest. He wasn't honest with the fans. He didn't respect them enough. So he failed here and he failed there. Maybe that's it for Gabe.
Finally, with Jay Black and Rhea Hughes, you're part of a fun weekly podcast called The TV Show. You're something of a TV addict, aren't you?
More than you could ever know. I love watching TV. And this is an era where you never run out of things to watch. There's always great stuff out. If you want to see something great right now on Netflix, and I hate soccer, they've got a 4-part series on David Beckham that will blow your mind. It's so great. It's that good. And that's it. When I find something great, Chet, the first thing I want to do is tell other people about it. And I'm able to do it on that podcast. And I'm not getting paid for that. I'm not doing any other podcasts. You don't hear me on sports podcasts or stuff like that, except ones like you got here as a guest. But I'm a regular on there because I love television. I just love it. My whole life I have.
I love your recent review of that naked dating show on Max.
Oh, God. You should have seen when my wife walked in and it was on the screen. Not good. Not good.
Oh, man. Angelo, I know you're going to be doing several book signings after Loud officially comes out on Black Friday, and you have one of them on December 1st. Yeah, you and our friend Ray Didinger. That's December 1st at the Center City Barnes and Noble, 6 p.m. Ray Diddy is one of my favorite people in the world, so I know that is going to be a great evening.
It's an honor, and I hope when people are there, they will look at his book, Finished Business, which is one of the best sports memoirs I've ever read in my whole life. And if people do want, now that I have them in hand, I'm going to be sending them out very shortly. If people want to order a personalized copy, where I'll write down there whatever you want me to write, or I'll just personalize it myself. Go to angelocataldi.com. We are taking orders now, and any day now, we're going to start filling them. It's so exciting.
Yeah, I can't wait. I will definitely be getting a copy. Check out the website, angelocataldi.com, the weekly podcast, the TV show, and be sure to order the book Loud, hitting bookstores everywhere November 28th. Angelo, this was loads of fun. Thank you so much.
I'll come back anytime, Chet. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.